Hello, everybody. My name is Simon Woods. I'm a sales engineer here at Convertr, and this is a tutorial video on one first one in a series of tutorials that we're going to do on integrating the Convertr platform to Adobe's Marketo Engage marketing automation platform. In this particular video, what we're going to do is cover off configuring the items and prerequisites we need in Marketo for us to connect. And we're going to, once we have those, we're going to put those into the Convertr platform so we can use them in subsequent videos. Okay, so without further ado, what we're going to do is go to your instance of Marketo. So just a quick, note here. We've tested our platform with Marketo Pro Elite or Enterprise, and to enable you to actually run through this process, you have to have admin access to the instance of Marketo as well. So if you don't have admin access, by all means, you can share this video with the person that does, and they can run through these steps on your behalf, giving you the prerequisites for you to connect your instance of Convertr to your instance of Marketo. So first and foremost, we go to the admin menu, and our first task is to create a new user role and assign the appropriate permissions to it. So if we go to users and roles and then click roles and click new role. So we're going to use a consistent naming convention here. So I'm going to call it new Convertr underscore API. And the sets of permissions we're interested in are the access API. So there's 35 permissions underneath that. Now, if you're really concerned about security and things like least privilege and honoring that, and all you want to do is just essentially send leads into the Marketo platform and not use custom activities or custom data objects or programs. The actual permission you really only need is read-only person and read-write person. However, for the purposes of these series of videos, we're going to be doing more than just putting leads in, but putting other objects in as well. So I'm going to take a broad brush here and just have all the permissions under that particular group. So if I click create, we can now see we have a new role called new Convertr underscore API. So the next step in the process is to invite a user to that particular role. So we go back to the users tab and we click invite new user. So look at the nomenclature here. It's about inviting people and sending emails. But in this instance, because it's going to be an API only user, no email will actually be sent, but we're just setting up anyway. But we still need to put in a valid email address. So I'm going to use my own address here. First name, last name. API role, just so people know. And access expires, we're going to set as never. The reason being because this is a integration, we don't want the credentials to expire. That will stop the integration actually working and stop the delivery of leads to Marketo. So if we click next, and what we're going to do is just highlight the Convertr API permission set that we created in the previous step, and we're going to choose API only and then click next. And as I've just described, because it's an API only, an invitation email will not be sent. But to complete the process for this step, just click on send. Okay, so we have a new user and it's the description of API role. And if I look at the roles now, the permission set, we should see that we actually have a new API with a per1 role there. So the next step in the process is to create a custom service. So still in the admin area, what we do is go to launch point and then click new and new service. So I'm going to give it a consistent name again. If I hit the select button, you can see here there's a load of pre-configured services that we can use to talk to other platforms. But what we are going to choose is custom. And when I choose custom, there's a couple of more configuration boxes that come up. So I'll just keep consistent here with the naming convention. But this time, if I click select, we have the API user, and the one we're interested in is this one here, which we created in the first step. I click create on this. And we now have our new service, custom service. What we need to do is click view details, and then you can see we have the client ID and client secret. So these are required for us to put into Convertr. So I'm just going to highlight those, and off screen just paste them in Notepad for use a bit later on. Close. So the next piece is we need to actually go ahead and identify what's known as the identity URL. So that is stored under web services. So this is consistent for the platform. So each platform will be different, but it will have a consistent web service API. And you can see here we have SOAP API and also the RESTful API. And the one that we're really interested in is the identity URL, which is this one here. So we're going to highlight that, copy it, and then off screen, I'm just posting that into Notepad for use later. Okay, so the next step we want to do, this is not mandatory, this step, it's not required, but it's a useful thing to do while we're here, is that when we're looking at integrating with Marketo, we also have fields in the Convertr platform which will have values in, and we want to map them to fields in the Marketo platform as well. So it's always very useful here to take go into field management and just export all the field names, and that will give you an XLS file that you can utilize later on when configuring the integrations to the Marketo program or list, or custom data objects as well. So that's everything that we need to do in Marketo. What I'm going to go now is swap over to the Convertr platform and enter the details into the credential manager. So I click in here. So we're back in the Convertr platform. So what we're going to do is choose Enterprise, and you can see here we have, you can see at the top here we have Credential Manager. Now, when it comes to the integrations, you can manually enter the required sort of client ID and client secret and identity URL at each time. However, it's more appropriate and better to use Credential Manager because it makes the admin overhead of doing that a lot easier. You just go into the integration and you just click on the down arrow and choose the right set of credentials for your integration. You will see more of this in the second and third videos we're going to do around integrating with a program or integrating with a Marketo list. So we'll be utilizing the credentials we stored here. So if you click on Credential Manager, and then once here, just click on Add. So if you look at entity here, you can see we have a connection app type or a processor job on type. So if I click processor job, you can actually see that we have two here for Marketo. One is for a program and one is for a Marketo list. So if you're going to be using both of those mechanisms of Marketo, you have to set two groups of permissions or two sets of permissions, one for Marketo program and one for Marketo list, which is the integrate to Marketo. So if I select that, then what I have to do is fill in the rest. So we're going to give it a logical name. So we're going to call it new underscore converter underscore API underscore Marketo, and which option do we set? We're going to say list in this instance. And then what we do is we need to copy those details that we created in Marketo. So the first thing is the client ID, which I've taken from Notepad. Next is the client secret, and then finally the identity URL for the REST API. Now if I click save on this now, so we now have a set of credentials to integrate with Marketo lists, and we're going to replicate the steps and create one for integrating with Marketo programs. So if I click add again, and I go down to type, and I choose processor job, and then this time I'm going to choose Marketo program, scroll up and give it a useful name, a consistent name, and then we're going to start copying stuff across again. And I click save. Okay, so we now have two sets of credentials that we can use going forward, one for Marketo lists and one for Marketo programs. So in the next series of videos, we're going to show you how we utilize those credentials to connect to Marketo. And video 2 will be covering off lists, video 3 will be covering off programs, and video 4 will be talking about custom data objects and also custom activities. So keep your eyes open for those, and hope you found this session interesting and informative. Thanks for watching.